Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lighthouse Sessions. Today, I'm excited. I'm reconnecting with an old friend, Bethany Kennedy. Bethany, why don't you introduce yourself and just tell my audience a tiny bit about what you do, because I promise we'll go deep.
Excellent. First of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm super excited to reconnect and have this conversation. What I do is it's really open-ended. So I have realized that what brings me the most joy is helping people have joy in their life. And so I love to meet new people, find out what makes them spark, and then bring that out in them.
I love it. Now, your profile jumped out at me and my audience. We like interesting people. So I know you and I are going to have a fun conversation. Let's talk just for a minute, well, or 10, about your job description or your title of Dream Sparker, because I immediately go, wow, let's talk more about that.
So Dream Spark is a tool that I use that brings out, because your brain can lie to you and your soul always tells you the truth. So it takes about 3 minutes, and it's your soul telling your brain what you need to know to do what you need to do to get to where you want to go. And so you write down all these different things, and you find either the most important thing you need to do today, or maybe you're making a really big decision. Maybe you're trying to find the love of your life. These are the things where your soul knows what's going on, and it talks to your brain, and then you have this aha moment, and you can watch in the 3 minutes. I'll watch my clients, and their face is transformed from perplexed, and then they have this sense of calm and this kind of like that, and then they look at me and they smile, and I'm like, this is so much fun.
I love it. Now, I'm going to ask a very practical question, and forgive me, but I do have practical roots. I personally used to be one of those people who had that little voice in my head. You know, we can call it the dreams, the soul, whatever. And I was really good. I think my soul was muzzled and locked in a box. Is this something people can do by themselves, or do they have to work with you, or is it ongoing, I guess is the question.
Yes. Yes to everything, really. So I have it on video if you need someone to walk it through. I have a PDF version that gives you just the instructions. I also do it live, and I can do it with one-on-one or in a group of however many people. It's actually really simple. As you know, you just have to follow directions. So you just breathe so the oxygen gets to your brain and relax. It is more, I would say, effective with a person, because there's like when you're doing it the first time, there's questions, especially if you're an overthinker.
Yeah.
You need to coach them through and say, your brows are furrowed, let's relax and try that again. And you do need to, and you do it over and over and over. And then you start getting creative. It becomes yours. It's pretty exciting, the different dream sparks that I have done on myself, and then look back. And I mean, I had 2 people, I'll tell you, like, one, I talked to them on different days, and I said, can you just describe what Dream Spark is to you? And they said, like, besides magic. I was like, oh, that's cool. And it was 2 separate people. And then I did it in a collaboration. And these 2 people, they actually shared their first name, but they had just met. And we did a Dream Spark collaboration, and their words were almost identical. So we knew they needed to connect. There was something there. So it's very fascinating.
Well, and I think, so full disclosure, I used to write a lot of books. I'm a ghostwriter, and a lot of my books were very much how to. And I think it was in February, I was writing a book, and about halfway through, I put it down and I said, oh my God, I am bored to tears with this thing. I threw it out, which is not that big a deal because I write a lot of books. But I was like, I do not want to write another how-to. So I actually sat down and, maybe accidentally tapped into this, but I looked at what kind of books would bring me joy to write. And I realized that I love the business parable genre. And I love John David Mann as an author. I love Bob Burg as an author. And it turns out I've loved Jeff Olson. He wrote a book called The Slight Edge. And it turns out John David Mann was his co-author. So anyways,
Wow.
I realized I don't want to write boring how-tos. I want to write those soul-inspired why-tos. And it was just fascinating because once I started that road, I was unstoppable. I actually I wanted to practice, so I wrote 40 books in less than a month. And it was just when you get out of the universe's way, it pushes things into you.
Wow. So 40 books in a month on why-tos. How long are these books that you're writing?
My books are very, very specific. Basically, they're about 100 pages long, and they answer the questions, 3 questions only. And, you and I have talked about Phil Wacknell before, but
Right.
my 3 questions are, do I have the problem that this book solves? And one problem, one book, that's why it's short. So do I have the problem it solves? Is it urgent for me to solve it, or is it a later thing? And then the third question, and I'll use you as an example, is Bethany the person that I want to help me with the Dream Sparker exercise? So it's very short, very intentional, but instead of lecturing down from the pulpit and saying, here's what you should do, it's helping people understand why they'd want to do it. And I think I accidentally invented a niche in the space. But each of the books, it's just a tiny little journey from, I don't know if I have the problem, right through to what would solving that problem look like.
Yes. Wow.
So,
I like that.
So my passion is community builders, which is going to be a transition. We're going to talk about true abundance. So tell me about the origins of true abundance.
Oh, let's see. The origins, that's always been something my husband and I wanted to do together. So I would say our first community we built was our family. We have 8 kids, and we are basically a birthday party in a box. We can make or break a party, right? All you have to do is invite us. And so that was the community. We realized there's a lot of different personalities. You can't make everybody happy, all those different things. How do we learn the best? So as we got into business, we saw that business owners can feel alone. They need support. That is huge. And so we have developed this community where you can come in and have interesting conversations where you're talking full, maybe you're philosophical, we have different corners, and a lot of this is new and it's just evolving, right? So we want like an author's corner where they can get together. Like right now, my brain is spinning with all the different people I can connect you with the ghostwriting and the publishing and the niching down and all those. I've got like 5 people in my mind right now. Like, oh, wow, I would love to connect you with these people, and then we've got the ones that are introverts, and I want to connect them with the networking gurus that will just guide them through, and the mompreneurs and the dadpreneurs. It's like that you just see someone and you just want to match them up with someone and go for it. And having these different panels where we can just ask why, and then have conversations with all these people and learn about each other and our humanness, all in the sense of abundance, where like we're building your business, you're building our business, and we're impacting the world.
I love that. And I know you and I have a couple of mutual connections through the Go Giver community. as well as, we'll shout out to Sharika Saunders because she connected us. What I love, and this is something I share with people, I'm dyed-in-the-wool introvert. People are like, but you do a podcast. And I'm like, exactly. It's me having a good conversation, one person, not, I don't want to be on stage and speak to thousands. I'd rather have a deep conversation with one. And a friend of mine, his job title, he calls himself an extrovert for hire. And I'm like, that is brilliant, because I will happily send you to events all day long. And he does the networking and then sends them my way. And then I build the relationships and I keep it going. So.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I think that's really what, I get excited when you say going on stage in front of thousands and that, but I do like the one-on-one conversations as well. But the consistency follow-up, I mean, I like the relationships and I'll follow up, but it might be like a month or two, or a year or something, so I love that idea of, like.
Well, and to your point, you talked about, we talked earlier about joy. And one of the things I found, I did a lot of public speaking, and pre-COVID, I was gone usually about 3-4 months of the year. And, the low point in my career was for about 3 months straight, I met my wife and kids at the airport hotel on a Saturday night. I'd fly in, we'd have the night together, and then Sunday morning we'd have breakfast. They'd bring me fresh clothes. I'd get on the next plane and head out. And I went, this is not why I do what I do. I mean, I exist for my kids and my wife. Why am I always gone?
Right.
So I looked for, how do I do it from home and still, following the Bob Berg and John David Mann's 5 laws of stratospheric success. It's like, how do I add value to people? And I love community, because I can have a legacy. Like, I don't know who needs to meet who, but I love that moment when you spark that connection. And, I remember during COVID, I reread The Go-Giver, and there's this tiny mention, I think mentioned once in the book, maybe twice, about a character called the Connector. And I went, I want to be that guy.
Yes.
I don't know what they do, who they are, but I want to be that person. And, it's kind of been an obsession ever since.
Yes. Yeah. And someone asked me what I did, and she goes, oh, you're a connector. And yes, that's what I love that. Yes. And my kids got me a cup that says chaos coordinator, because if it's if it's chaotic, I like that too.
Well, I can't even fathom. I have 2 children. They're the light of my life. I can't fathom having 8 kids. I feel like you're always between something,
Yes.
Honestly, with my wife, I said, let's have 2. And that way I'm very practical. I said, okay, if one has a sports event and the other has a school event, we part, and, we're there. And I just couldn't fathom being outnumbered. So I admire anybody who has that many kids. It's just, I actually met, what's her name? Rochelle Aikens. She calls herself America's Supermom. She's got 15. And we had a conversation, because I have to ask these questions. And, so we were talking about logistics of transport. And she said, for the while they own a bus, and everybody rides the bus together to go to family stuff. Mm-hmm. But the whole thing is, the older kids are now driving the younger around. And I'm like, gotcha.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what happens. There's a lot of, you just bring in the older ones. And when it was young, and no one was driving, it was like that bus where you would go to because someone was saying, it's like, and the funny thing is when, we drove probably less, we probably had a smaller footprint than our neighbors, because we couldn't just go buy, like the family size lasagna. It was, we're always more of the party size, but but it was like we were making more fresh because you could buy it in bulk, and so we actually had less garbage at garbage day than our neighbors. We had less stuff because we recycled it, My husband is 6'2" and I'm like 5 foot. So when I would give the kids, all the clothes, the hand-me-downs, they would grow and give them hand-me-backs. So I have the hand-me-backs. I'm like, oh, I got it back.
Clothes, yay.
Yay, yeah. So I am officially now the shortest person in the family. So the 11-year-old is the youngest and he's taller than me now. So I am the littlest.
I love that. And for whatever reason, and I think it's a reflection of me, one of the things I've observed is my guests are, first of all, they seem to be parents who love their kids. I have no time for people to go, oh, my kids are jerks. It's like, who made them that way? So obviously, I like people who like their kids. I'm unabashedly, I tell my kids daily, I adore them. And my youngest, he's 12, and he's like, Dad, you've only told me that 1 billion times. And I said, well, let's go for 2 billion.
Yeah.
The other thing I've found is we're curious and we like to bring people together. And I think that's part of who we are. And the other part is there seems to be this unspoken spirituality, because I think when you're truly curious, when you're living what you're meant to do and you're finding your dreams, spirituality kind of falls into it, even by accident or by design. It's above my pay grade. I can't figure it out, and I don't need to. So
yes, but that's the epitome of being curious, is you just keep looking. You just keep asking. Yeah, I love that. And that's probably another reason why I like kids so much, is there's always that curiosity. That's like the best. It's like being curious as a child. It's just every next thing you just followed up with a why.
It's when I was a kid, why was my favorite question. My teachers were like, anybody have questions? Anybody but Jeff? And
yeah.
Why? And of course I would say why. And then when my youngest started doing the why, my wife would take a deep breath and I'm like, oh, isn't it wonderful? And one of the things, and I'll share this with you, Bethany, but I thought my job as the dad was to teach my kids and help them learn things. And the greatest day was the day I realized that I was here to learn from them.
Exactly.
And that curiosity they bring to everything, it's just reawakened that in me, because you learn grown-ups don't ask so many questions and they don't ask why.
Yes, it is. It's really true. Yeah.
You killed the cat, right? What did the cat ever do to curiosity? Sorry, that never happened.
I never thought of it from the cat's perspective. That is pretty sad.
I get it, but it's like, man, that's just mean to the poor cat. So
yeah.
Anyways, those are the weird things I think about at night, and my wife is like, you are strange. Thank you.
Thank you. Exactly. I get you're crazy. That's the one I get a lot.
That's there's a line in Deadpool where he meets his girlfriend and he says, your crazy matches my crazy. And my wife and I, that's one of our favorite lines because it's so appropriate. So
that is, yes.
I like to tell
glad you told me that, because I can't watch that movie.
It's got some strange moments as well, but I love Ryan Reynolds'
I do too. Yeah, I love Ryan Reynolds. Yes.
So the thing I would point out there is, and I'll just share this with you, you'll find this humorous. When my kids roll their eyes and say, Dad, you're crazy, Mom, you're crazy, I smile and say, you get half from me and half from her. Enjoy. It's like, life's meant to be fun. Now, they appreciate the crazy, but some days they do roll their eyes and go, "Oh, Dad, just."
Yes. If I try to make a dad joke, I get an eye roller, and they say, "Just leave the dad jokes to Dad."
Okay, I have a dad joke you can use.
Okay.
So by the way, I use this on adults to filter them. So my favorite joke, and I can make my kids laugh every time I tell it, and my wife is like, "Enough already. Circles are pointless." It's so ridiculously true, and yet I don't know why. I just find it so funny.
I know, but I love circles. Yeah.
Yeah, and we also have running debates in our house, which diagram is the best. I like the Venn diagram, even though it has circles and it's pointless. But yeah, we have very strange conversations.
Yes. Somebody said yesterday they were talking about a trifecta and that it just goes around the triangle. And I just had to stop. And I thought, how do you go around a triangle? But I decided not to say anything because the crazy would come out a little too much.
Like circles. So what I've learned is if you use, this is weirder than people need to know, but an equilateral triangle fits perfectly inside a circle.
Right.
And therefore you can have your trifecta around the triangle.
Right. And I was, as I said it, my visual brain just went, oh, you can go around, even though around the points, but if you hit the points, then it's another triangle. But yeah.
Yeah, I spend time with my kids. We sit there and do the math on these things. Don't ask me why. It's just one of those. Whenever my kids say, "Oh, I need a new geometry set for school," it's like, "Oh, we better test it." So we're a little nerdy in the house. Now, I'm going to ask you a bit of a question, because one of the fascinating things I find about the guests on my show is we all started going one direction, and then all of a sudden we end up doing something else. And it's usually, I'm going to say, a calling. But when I first met you, you were doing financial, you were a finance professional, and you helped people with financial security. How did you pivot to focusing on community?
So it's a really good question. The reason I went into financial services is it was my weakest point, and I needed to learn it. And so I thought I would just go into business because that's the way I just jump into it. And I learned a lot. I loved it. And yet it wasn't my passion. Like, community has always been my passion. So I found myself connecting a lot of people and not making as much money. So I really got into the bringing the joy. And I realized that I was trying to fit this financial services into this passion and it was just not there. So I decided to focus in on the community part, the part that's already passionate, the part that was the joy and just have, it came down to making people's day, just showing up and smiling on Zoom. I would get comments all the time as "You've made my day." And I realized that is community. And so whatever I do, as long as I'm smiling and enjoy with what I'm doing, I'm impacting. Yeah. And so I believe that financial services is still really important. And maybe down the road, I can put that in again. But at this point, my focus and passion is so much stronger in the community sense, in the arts, and even entertainment. It's just, it just kind of woke up that this is my passion.
I love that. And I think that's, the way I put it, I was busy doing what my brain, I was the good son. My parents wanted me to go to college. They wanted me to get a job. And I did that, and I was like, I hate my life. Like I say I'm a recovering accountant. I did it well, but every day I'd go to the office and my soul died just a little. And I'm like, I don't like this. When I discovered, again, reading The Go-Giver, I was like, wait, people do this for real? It's like when I heard about the community manager, community leader sort of job description, I was like, tell me more. It just and that's, to me, all podcasting is I'm, the mayor of my community, and I bring people in, and my job is to make sure the right people meet each other. And to me, that is the greatest high there is, because not only am I saying, okay, you two need to meet, but it's also, you're going to change each other's lives. I know it. I can't explain it, but trust me, it's there.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's when I meet other community people, I'm thinking of a couple of people that desperately need to meet you, because the magic, and this is the part I love about community people. I have yet to meet one who says, oh, they compete with me. No, we're not going to, like, how do you running communities?
Right. Yeah, because it's such a in and out kind of thing, and I can't stay in just one community. Why would I expect someone else to stay in one community?
Yeah, put a gate around it, keep everyone in. A friend of mine, his mom said it well, best, and I love it. She was a realtor, and she said networking is like pollinating flowers. You got to be the bee with the most pollen on you. And she would host parties. Her entire mission was connecting people. And he said, when I asked him how he learned to network, he said, I was 10 years old watching my mom do open houses. And just stuck with him. And I think that's fascinating. So I do love connectors, because the right ones, it's like, oh, you need to meet these people. And so it's always fun. Now, let's go back to what you actually do for a living. So somebody watching this, they've made it this far. They're like, I like Bethany. I think she's fascinating. What do you do, and how would somebody know that you can help them? Let's start with that tough question.
Sure. So what I do, and this is built into our community as well, but I say my little niche is that dream spark. So what I do is I help people make decisions intuitively, so that they know that they've made that right decision. So being a mom of 8, you have decisions flying at you all day long. Yep. You're sleep deprived. You're probably not eating. And I learned how, when I woke up in the morning, I knew anything could happen. I mean, we could go, it would not follow the schedule. I knew that there was a schedule as a guideline, so we knew it was going, but I wouldn't tell the kids where we're going till we were in the car, because of course it would change, right? Because it's like, nope, we're going to go, we moved one day and we ended up, the first thing we did is go to the emergency room. So, I mean, that's just, you just don't know what's coming. And so I would have a word for the day when I got out of bed. What's the most important thing I need to do? And my soul would tell me. And then I knew that if I got that one thing done today, we're okay. Aside from, no, everyone's fed, no one's bleeding, yeah, everyone's, being kind to one another. Those were my top 3. We had to have kind words in the house, because I couldn't do any negativity. We all need to stay positive. We're all in this together. So when the dream spark came to me as I can share this with others, I knew that even if my decision didn't make sense, but I knew in my knower, this is what to do, and everything could fall apart, but eventually that decision would show up as that was the right one. And it gave me such a confidence to go on. And so a lot of entrepreneurs, they approach this like, what if I fail? And it's like, I just love watching their faces transform when they realize that failure is just learning that maybe I don't want to do it that way. I'll do it next time, and it all is okay. So that is my coaching technique, but it's quick. It's like 15-minute sessions with you.
I love it. And I'm going to have you come back. I do run a mastermind, and I think you'd be a great guest for my mastermind, because I attract, so I'm a visionary and I love the dreamers. And yet somehow I attract a lot of people who are stuck in their head. And for the record, I used to be that guy. But what I've learned is, and I love the word you use, the knower. Once you find that voice, and I want your perspective on it, because I think people say this gets a little woo-woo. My voice always comes from out here and up here.
Yeah.
And when I'm not listening to it, it's weird, but I feel a buzzing in my ear, and it's always this ear. And it's like, oh, I need to be paying attention to something. And so I love that you use that word too, because I've been gifted that from a couple of people. But I would say it's fascinating, and this is for the question, when the universe tells you with that certainty, it's so much more calming because you're not afraid of failure. And I always say, if I didn't get what I wanted, I at least got a lesson.
Yes, exactly. And the lesson might have been what you wanted deep down inside. Yeah. And so that's the other part, is I work with people to be very, very honest with themselves, because we will tell ourselves, this is the best thing to do because this, and this. And yet it's really not what you want inside. It's not really, really, really what you want to do. And if life is supposed to be fun, and if life is about experience, why are we spending all our time doing something that we hate?
Yeah.
Is that really best for your family if you are miserable?
Yeah. And I find that fascinating when you learn to listen to that voice. One of the things I realized was that I thought I knew what I wanted, but there'd be this hesitation, and it would lead to self-sabotage because, I have a petulant inner child that just, stamps his feet and has a tantrum. I was like, oh, maybe that wasn't for me. And now that I listen to that voice, life becomes, I'm not going to say effortless, but it becomes, I enter that flow state a lot where it's, wow, that just happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's exactly what I would describe that as, a flow. And it's not always easy. But I mean, when you do something that's not easy and then you're done, you're like, either like, I don't ever want to do that again, but I did it, like, yay, or I could do that again, and then it's not as hard the next time. But it's like you take that second to pat yourself on the back and be like, we did something hard.
Things I learned to do is I thank past Jeff, and I say, future Jeff, you're going to appreciate this, because sometimes, you're going through something and you just, you end up in the emergency room and it's like, well, this sucks, but, I'm going to take care, and future Jeff will thank me for it. And sometimes it's like, yesterday Jeff was so mean to me, but today Jeff is nice to tomorrow Jeff. So, weird things I do to bring joy into my world, because, the universe is not always lined up to say, hey, good job, or thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Or
yeah. And I've had like past Bethany like keep telling me like, this is what happened before. And I remember somebody told me to thank past Bethany and tell her it's time to take a nap.
I love that.
And then she won't talk to you anymore for the time. She needs to just take a little time to sleep.
Needs a little bit of a nap. And that's the thing. We all believe that we know what's going on, but one of the things I've realized is when I listen to my knower, the universe will tell you things that you weren't ready for.
Yes.
And again, it's like, why am I resisting this? And it's, past Jeff's having a tantrum. So again, I love nap. That's I take him to the beach or for ice cream, but a nap.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the hardest question of the entire show, because I could talk to you and you bring me joy, so thank you. somebody's made it and they want to learn more and they want to connect with you, how do they connect with you? How do they learn more about what you do?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way. And, even a direct message on LinkedIn is great. And if we, then we can have a conversation there, and maybe you could book time on my calendar and see what brings you joy.
Bethany, thank you for hanging out with me and being on the show today.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been really fun. Thanks.